Before start this emotional and heartwarming story, please tell us in the comment box, where are you watching from? We love to hear that from you. The one every girl dreams about since childhood. A white dress, soft music, tears of joy, a kiss that seals forever. But for Hannah Alice, the dream ended before it began. Not with a kiss, not with a promise, but with silence. She stood at the altar, waiting for the man who had promised her the world. 10 minutes late, 20. A full hour passed. Guests began whispering, eyes filled with pity, or worse, disgust. Her own mother avoided her gaze. Her father shifted uncomfortably. A bridesmaid leaned in, voice shaking. "He's not coming, Hannah." Words like knives, sharp, cruel, final. Hannah's bouquet slipped from her hands. The flowers hit the floor. So did her heart. She stepped outside. The sky had opened. Rain poured down like punishment. Her veil stuck to her face. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. But she didn't care. Her heels clicked on the wet stone steps as she walked away. Fast, then faster, until she was running from shame, from laughter behind her back, from everything. She passed strangers who looked at her like a ghost. No one stopped. No one asked. She reached a lonely bus stop, miles from the church. There she collapsed onto the cold metal bench. Her dress, once perfect, now stained with mud. Her hands trembling. Her bouquet, somehow still in her grip, crushed and limp. A woman passed with an umbrella. She glanced, then kept walking. A man on a bicycle stared, then turned away. Hannah sobbed, each tear mixing with the rain. She wasn't just crying over a lost wedding. She was crying for all the years she spent loving a man who didn't love her back, for the pain of never being enough for his rich white family, for the shame of being judged because her mother had a different accent, a different shade of skin. She cried because she believed love could beat prejudice, but it didn't. She cried because she still wanted to believe in something, anything. Another car passed. She didn't even look up. What was the point? Then she heard it. Brakes. Software. Controlled. A car door opening. She barely lifted her head. A man stepped out, holding a large black umbrella. He was tall, dark suit, sharp jaw, eyes that looked straight into hers without blinking. He knelt in front of her. His voice was like velvet. "Miss, are you okay?" She tried to speak, but her voice was gone. So she just shook her head. Once. He didn't ask anything else. Didn't press. Didn't judge. He removed his coat and draped it over her shoulders, soaking his sleeves in the process. "You shouldn't be here alone," he said gently. "There's too much rain in the world for hearts already drowning." That one sentence made her look at him fully. For the first time. He wasn't just a man in a suit. There was sorrow behind those eyes, a shadow of understanding. "I can drive you somewhere safe," he said, "if you'll let me." Hannah hesitated. Was this real? Was it safe? But when she looked into his eyes again, she didn't see a stranger. She saw warmth. She saw calm in the storm. She saw something she thought she had lost. Kindness. She nodded. He helped her to her feet, held the umbrella steady over her, opened the car door like a gentleman from an old movie. She slid into the leather seat. Warmth surrounded her. Rain tapped gently on the windows. As the car pulled away from the cold bus stop, Hannah held the crushed bouquet in her lap. She didn't know who he was, didn't know where she was going, but something in her heart whispered. She had just been rescued not by chance, but by fate. The street was quiet. Only the sound of rain hitting pavement filled the night. Cars sped by, their headlights flashing past Hannah without pause, without care. She didn't look up anymore, didn't expect anything, didn't hope. But then, it came. A black luxury car slowed down. Not just slowed, stopped. Sleek and silent like a shadow. It parked right in front of the lonely bus stop. The engine purred softly. Its presence felt out of place, like a piece of another world. Hannah barely moved. Then the tinted window rolled down, slowly, smoothly. Rainlight shimmered on the glass. And then she saw him. A man. Late 30s, maybe early 40s. Dark, perfectly styled hair. A clean-shaven jaw, sharp and strong. But it was his eyes that caught her breath, deep brown, almost black, and warm. Eyes that didn't just look at her, they looked into her. He leaned slightly out the window. A tailored charcoal suit hugged his shoulders. There was power in his posture. But his voice? It was gentle. So gentle. "Miss, are you okay?" he asked. Hannah blinked, stunned. The world had ignored her for hours. No one had asked her that. Not once. "Miss, are you okay?" he asked. Hannah blinked, stunned. The world had ignored her for hours. No one had asked her that. Not once. "You look like you've been through hell," he added, his tone full of concern, not pity. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out, only a broken breath. A sob she swallowed. Her lips trembled, but she couldn't speak. The man didn't rush her, didn't demand answers. Instead, he shut off the engine. Then he opened his car door. Rain immediately soaked his suit, but he didn't flinch, didn't care. He walked toward her, his leather shoes splashing through puddles. Hannah backed up slightly, unsure. Was this real? He said nothing, just removed his coat, a long, dark trench coat that smelled faintly of expensive cologne and rain. He gently placed it over her shoulders. Warmth wrapped around her like a soft shield. Her soaked wedding dress clung beneath it, but she didn't feel cold anymore. "I'm John Thomas," he said finally, his voice calm, grounded. She blinked. John Thomas. The name echoed in her mind like a whisper from a dream. Not just any man, the John Thomas, the tech millionaire. She had seen his face on magazines. He owned one of the biggest companies in the country. What was he doing here? At a dark bus stop in the middle of nowhere? Talking to her? "I don't know what happened," he said softly. "You don't have to explain. You don't owe me anything." He paused, studying her expression, her red eyes, the broken bouquet still in her hand. "But you can't stay here like this. It's not safe, and it's not right." Hannah hesitated. Strangers meant danger. Every warning sign from childhood flashed in her brain. But there was something about John Thomas. He didn't stare at her body. He didn't scan her with judgment. He looked at her like she was human. Not a soaked bride. Not a story to gossip about. Just a girl, hurting. A tear slid down her cheek. He reached into his coat pocket and handed her a folded handkerchief. Real fabric, soft and clean. "Please," he said again, "let me take you somewhere warm." His eyes held no demand, only kindness. Her lips parted, barely moving. I don't know." "That's okay," he whispered. "You don't have to know right now. Just breathe." For a moment, Hannah closed her eyes. The rain faded. The pain didn't vanish, but it paused. Because in front of her stood a stranger who didn't ask anything from her, only offered. She looked up again and nodded. John smiled. Just a little, but it was enough. He guided her gently to the car, held the door open like a gentleman from a time long gone. She slid into the leather seat, the scent of fresh cedar and warmth wrapped around her. It felt surreal. John closed the door quietly, then walked around to his side. He got in, turned on the heater, and adjusted the air for her. Still, no questions, no assumptions. He simply drove. The rain still fell outside, washing the city clean. But inside that black car, something different was happening. A heart began to thaw. A storm inside a girl began to still. She didn't know where they were going, didn't know what tomorrow held. But for the first time in hours, she felt like someone saw her. Not the shame, not the scandal, not the gossip, just her. And maybe, just maybe. This night wasn't the end of her story. Maybe it was the beginning. The white car rolled through iron gates that whispered shut behind them. Hannah glanced up, startled. Tall trees surrounded them like silent guardians. A long stone path curved upward toward a house. No, not a house. A mansion, but not the kind that shouted wealth. The kind that whispered peace. Her eyes widened as it came into view. It was beautiful. Glass windows stretched like open arms across the front. Soft amber lights glowed inside. Stone walls, strong and elegant, wrapped the home like a castle from a fairy tale. John parked in the driveway and turned to her. "Let's get you warm," he said gently. She nodded, still in a daze. He opened her door. The rain had slowed, now just to drizzle. He walked beside her, close enough to shield, but never to invade. As they stepped inside, Hannah braced herself, expecting marble floors, cold silence, echoes of power. Instead, she gasped softly. Warm wood lined the floors. The scent of vanilla and cedar floated through the air. A fire crackled in a stone hearth across the room. A soft couch with blankets lay nearby, inviting. Bookshelves filled the walls. A grand piano sat quietly in the corner, its keys untouched but loved. It didn't feel like a rich man's lair. It felt like a home. A golden retriever trotted around the corner, tail wagging, tongue out. He paused when he saw Hannah, then patted over slowly and pressed his head into her palm. She let out the tiniest laugh, her first real sound all night. John smiled. "This is Max," he said softly. "He's not much for small talk either, but he knows good people when he sees them." Hannah crouched down and stroked Max's soft fur. It was the first gentle touch she'd felt in hours. "Come on," John said kindly. "I'll get you something dry to wear." He led her upstairs, not too fast, not too close. At a guest room, he handed her a soft set of lounge clothes. Warm cotton, neutral colors, still wrapped in plastic. "I'll be downstairs, take your time," he said, and then left without another word. Hannah changed slowly. Peeling off the ruined wedding dress felt like shedding a second skin, one full of sorrow, shame, abandonment. She folded it gently, setting it aside. It no longer felt like hers. When she came downstairs, John was in the kitchen. No staff, no chefs, just him, heating water, slicing lemon. He turned when he heard her footsteps. "I made tea," he said. "Chamomile. It helps." She nodded, still unsure what to say, still lost. He placed the mug in front of her. Steam curled into the air like a soft ribbon. He didn't sit beside her. He sat across from her, hands folded. "You don't need to talk," he said again. His voice was low, smooth, steady. "Not tonight, not tomorrow, not ever, unless you want to." She stared at the tea, her hands cradling the warmth. No one had ever spoken to her like that. No pressure, no fake sympathy, no judgment. He leaned back slightly and looked into the fire, letting silence fill the room. It wasn't awkward. It was gentle, healing. The dog curled at her feet. The fire snapped softly, and inside Hannah something loosened. Not completely, not enough to forget, but enough to breathe. Hours passed, neither spoke. The tea went cold, but Hannah stayed. Eventually John stood. "I'll show you your room. You can sleep as long as you need." He led her down a quiet hallway, opened a door. The room was peaceful, soft gray blankets, a bookshelf beside the bed, a little lamp on the nightstand already glowing. She stepped inside. Her legs almost gave out from exhaustion. He didn't follow. He stayed at the doorway. "Sleep, Hannah," he said, for the first time calling her by name. She blinked, surprised, but it didn't feel strange. It felt like comfort. "Thank you," she whispered, barely audible. He nodded once, then gently closed the door. Alone, Hannah sat on the edge of the bed. She looked around. There were no pictures on the walls, no signs of laughter, only soft peace. And something else, loneliness. She slipped under the covers. Warmth sank into her bones. That night she cried, but the tears were different. They didn't burn. They didn't scream. They fell quietly. Not because she was broken, but because, for once, she felt safe. She didn't know then. Didn't see the way John lingered outside her door. Didn't know the weight he carried in his heart, a weight he had buried for years, a pain that matched hers more than she could imagine. Tonight, two souls were under the same roof, one shattered, one silent, both waiting for something neither knew they needed, each other. The sun rose gently over the hills. Golden light streamed through the wide glass windows. And for the first time in years, Hannah woke up feeling calm. The nightmares didn't come that night. The silence didn't hurt. And the walls of that quiet mansion didn't echo with loneliness anymore. Downstairs, she found John already awake, sleeves rolled up, flipping pancakes. Music played softly from an old record player. Jazz, gentle and rich. You like blueberries? He asked, turning to her with a warm smile. She blinked at him, surprised again. This man, this millionaire, cooked his own breakfast. Cooked for her. She nodded, her voice still quiet in the mornings. I love them. He placed a plate in front of her. Steam rose from the pancakes like a soft dance. Good, he said, because I make terrible chocolate chip ones. She laughed, and that laugh wasn't forced. It came from somewhere deep, somewhere waking back to life. After breakfast, they took a walk through his garden. It stretched across acres, roses, lavender, jasmine vines climbing stone walls. The air smelled of earth and spring. I started this garden 5 years ago, John said as he handed her a trowel. Didn't know a thing about flowers. Just needed something to keep me sane. Hannah knelt beside him in the dirt, pulled weeds, planted tulips, and in the soil she found her fingers remembering life. Warm, messy, real. Day by day she helped him plant, water, prune, and day by day something inside her grew too. Hope. They talked more, shared little things. He told her about his travels, the countries he'd visited, the languages he tried to learn. She told him about her mother's old songs in Spanish and how she dreamed of becoming a teacher before life got in the way. They laughed, real laughter, the kind that filled the air and softened every wall between them. But one rainy afternoon, as thunder rolled in the distance, Hannah wandered into his study. The room was quiet, dim, peaceful. Books lined every wall. A grand desk sat by the window, and on it, a single frame photo. She picked it up without thinking. A young woman smiled back at her. Long dark hair, eyes that sparkled with life. Hannah turned the photo over, scrawled on the back in a strong, slanted hand. My sister. Taken too soon. She held the frame in both hands, feeling the weight of it. The silence in the room changed. Suddenly, it wasn't peaceful. It was sacred. Footsteps behind her. She turned. John stood in the doorway, still, his face unreadable for a long moment. Then he stepped forward. She was my only family, he said quietly. His voice was softer than usual, more fragile. She fell in love with a man who was black, and some people, they couldn't stand it. Hannah's heart squeezed. She listened, unmoving. They didn't hit her, they didn't touch her, but their words, their looks, their hate, it was louder than fists. He paused, blinking hard. She stopped going out, stopped singing, stopped smiling. One day she just didn't wake up. Hannah gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. I'm so sorry, she whispered. John gave her a small, broken smile. She was sunshine, and the world turned its back on her just because she loved someone who looked different. Silence fell between them, a painful, heavy silence. But it was not empty. It was full of truth. Hannah's eyes filled with tears, because her own story had cracks that matched his. My fiancé, she said slowly, left me because my mom is part Hispanic. His family said they wouldn't accept someone like me. Her voice shook. I thought I wasn't enough, that I was the problem. John looked at her. No, Hannah, you weren't the problem. He reached for her hand, held it gently. You were never the problem. The world just hasn't healed yet. She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. But maybe we can help it start, he whispered. Their hands stayed joined. Two strangers, two stories, two wounded hearts who found in each other something rare. Not pity, not charity, but understanding, the kind that only comes from shared pain. Max, the golden retriever, came and rested his head on both their knees, as if he too understood. In that quiet room, with a photo between them and rain outside the window, healing began, the kind that isn't loud, the kind that takes root like flowers in spring, steady, slow, strong. The days slipped by like petals on the wind. Morning sunlight, warm tea, laughter in the garden. Bit by bit, Hannah Alice found her way back to herself. The pain didn't vanish, but it softened, became a part of her, not the whole of her. She began to hum while watering the lilies, to smile while reading in the garden swing, to laugh, freely without flinching. John noticed every moment, every time she twirled a strand of hair when she was thinking, every time her face lit up when she saw a new flower bloom, every time she stopped to pet Max, who had become her shadow. And every night John found himself lingering near the fire, wondering how a broken heart could begin to fall again. One evening the sky turned gold. The sun dipped low, brushing the clouds in soft pink and amber. John stepped out onto the porch and watched her in the garden. She wore one of his sweaters now, sleeves pushed up, hands covered in soil, cheeks rosy from laughter. She looked alive. His breath caught. He knew he had nothing prepared, no diamonds, no candlelit orchestra, no speech, but he had something deeper, a love that had grown slowly, gently, fiercely, and tonight he couldn't keep it in. "Hannah," he called softly. She turned, hair in a loose braid, hands dusty from planting roses, a smile blooming on her face like the garden around her. "Yes," she said, wiping her hands on her jeans. "Come with me," he said, offering a hand. They walked together along the stone path. The roses had begun to open, blush pink, deep red, ivory white, a sea of color swaying gently in the breeze. At the center, he stopped. There, a wooden bench stood under an arch of flowering vines. "Sit with me?" he asked. She nodded. They sat side by side, the sun sinking behind the trees, crickets beginning to sing. For a long moment, he didn't speak, only stared out at the garden they had tended together, with their hands, their silence, their scars. Then slowly, he turned to her. "Hannah," he said. His voice was steady, but his fingers trembled slightly. She looked at him, her heart already thudding. "I don't want to rescue you," he said. "I never did." She blinked. "I want to walk beside you, not ahead, not behind, but with you, through whatever storms come." Her throat tightened. He reached into his pocket, not for a ring, but for a folded piece of cloth. He unwrapped it. Inside was a rosebud, pressed, preserved, from the first day they worked in the garden together. "I don't have goal," he whispered. "I don't have a speech or a perfect plan." He looked into her eyes, deep, honest. "But I have this heart, and it wants yours, forever." Hannah froze, not from fear, not from uncertainty, but from hope. A tear slipped down her cheek, and she didn't hide it. She didn't gasp because he was rich, or because the moment was grand. She gasped because something in her cracked open, and out poured love, real, raw, redeeming. She opened her mouth, no words coming at first. Then finally, a whisper. "Yes," she said, just that, one word. But it rang louder than any diamond ever could. John let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. He took her hand, kissed her knuckles gently. No crowds cheered, no fireworks exploded. But in that garden, under the arch of roses, a broken girl who had once wept at a bus stop said yes to a man who didn't save her, but stood beside her as she saved herself. Max barked once in the distance, tail wagging like he approved. The wind picked up, swirling rose petals around them like confetti. And as the stars began to twinkle above, two hearts, once shattered by cruelty and loss, began to write a new story, together. Not built on gold, but on kindness, respect, and the courage to love despite the world's hate. It wasn't the grandest wedding. There were no gold chandeliers or champagne fountains, no red carpets or flashing cameras. But it was beautiful, in the purest way. The ceremony took place in the garden they built together, the same garden where roses had bloomed alongside their healing hearts. Now fairy lights draped from branches, wooden chairs sat in gentle rows, petals lined the aisle, soft, simple, perfect. The sun was just beginning to set, that golden hour when everything looks like magic. Friends gathered, not ones who judged by skin color or social class, but souls who had seen the truth in both of them. People who believed in love, real love. John stood at the end of the aisle, no tuxedo, just a tailored navy suit, sleeves rolled up slightly, a single rose on his lapel, Hannah's favorite kind. His hands shook slightly as he waited, but his eyes never left the path. Soft music played. And then she appeared. Hannah Alice. No longer the broken bride at the bus stop. No longer hiding beneath pain, but glowing, alive, strong. Her dress was simple. Soft lace, flowing gently with each step. No jewels, no veil. Just a crown of garden roses in her hair and the brightest smile he'd ever seen. As she walked down the aisle, the world faded. He didn't hear the music. He didn't see the guests. He saw only her, and she saw only him. Tears welled in his eyes before he could stop them. Not tears of sorrow, but tears of gratitude. Because somehow from the wreckage of two lives, something beautiful had grown. She reached him. He took her hand. "You're not just my bride," he whispered. "You're the miracle that saved me." Her breath hitched, and she smiled through tears. "You're the reason I believe in love again," she whispered back. The officiant spoke gently, but few words were needed. They didn't need promises filled with poetry. They had already lived their vows. When it was time to speak, John turned to the guests. "I used to think love had to be perfect," he said, "that it came dressed in diamonds and designer labels." He looked at Hannah, voice steady. "But then I met her, soaked in rain, heart in pieces, and I realized love doesn't come perfect. It comes real." Hannah's turn. She stepped forward. "I was left behind because of the color in my blood," she said quietly, "because some people still believe love should come with rules." She turned to John. "But he never saw my roots as flaws. He saw them as flowers." There was a hush in the crowd, tears in more than a few eyes. They exchanged rings, simple silver bands, etched with the word "together" inside. No diamonds, just meaning. And when they kissed, it wasn't just a kiss. It was a message. To every person who had judged them, to every whisper of hate, to every tradition that said, "Stay within your kind." That kiss said, "We choose love. We choose each other, no matter what the world thinks." Applause rose, not loud or forced, but honest, joyful, real. Max barked once, tail wagging furiously. Even he seemed to understand the power in the moment. As night fell, lanterns glowed. There was laughter, dancing on the grass, fresh bread and roasted vegetables shared like family. John and Hannah sat beneath the arch of roses, hands clasped. "You okay?" he asked softly. "I've never been better," she said. In the distance, someone lit a candle for John's sister. It flickered bright and proud, and Hannah whispered to the flame, "We made it. For her, for all of us." That night, two people didn't just marry each other. They married two worlds, two wounds, two hopes, and they proved hate may shout, but love lasts. In a world where people still judge love by color, culture, or class, John and Hannah proved one truth. Love doesn't ask questions, it just gives. And sometimes the broken bride at the bus stop becomes the heart that heals another,